Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next session of the 2024 EA Global Summit. I'm Ryan Schmier from Sparx Services North America, and I'm pleased to be joined today by a couple of product leaders. We have Cary Bryczek, Director of Solutions Architecture for Jama Software, and Nizam Mohamed from Sparx Systems. They're going to be sharing today about the Sparx Jama integration, along with a demo and explaining what can be done with the latest integrations between Sparx and Jama. So before we get started and I hand it over to the presenters, a couple of housekeeping items. If we've got time, we'll do a live Q&A at the end of this. If you have questions, you can go ahead and enter them into the GoTo platform, or you can put them in the Slack channel and we'll pull them from there. If we don't get to your questions, we apologize. There's only a certain amount of time today and we're keeping things going. But we will go ahead and respond to them in the Slack channel. And if you're watching this video on YouTube following the event, you can go ahead and reach out to sales@sparxsystems.us, and we will make sure your questions get sent over to the presenters for answers. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Nizam to get the party started.
Thank you, Ryan. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure joining you. Just sharing this link. Yeah, thank you, everyone, for joining. In this session, we're going to take a closer look at the requirements integration between Jama and Enterprise Architect. And it's my pleasure to join Cary from Jama to present this. This integration is intended to smoothen the data exchange between the two most commonly used tools in terms of systems engineering, specifically, where we've got Enterprise Architect lined up with the integration layer, which is integrated with EA, and that kind of communicates with Jama in quite a deep integration where we understand the meta model, the project details, the hierarchy, and whatnot of Jama, and then make them available for you to access within the modeling environment so that you could establish the traceability. So before I jump into the details of the integration, I would like to invite Cary to give an overview from Jama side on what is most of us know Jama, but just to give an overview of Jama, and then also give a heads up to what kind of traceability are we expecting to achieve with this integration. So with that said, I'll probably pass it to Cary. So Ryan, if you could make Cary a present.
Cary, you're now the presenter.
All righty. Thank you so much. I appreciate that warm welcome, Nizam. I just want to, let's see if I can make this bigger. For those of you who don't know, maybe a little quick background. If you're unfamiliar who Jama Software is, we're the market leader for requirements management software. We're used across many industries such as automotive, software, insurance, aerospace, medical device, robotics, and a lot more. Our award-winning software, got to brag a little bit, and live traceability solution enables more efficient and optimized product, system, and software development. With Jama Connect, you can measure and improve your development process. So we're not just configuration managing data, but we're actually doing some measurement under the covers and allowing you to see what your systems engineering processes are. And I'll show you what that looks like today. You can go and check us out on the G2 grid to see why users have rated us as the #1 requirements management software. Today, when you're developing a system or a product or a new software application, It requires, in some cases, dozens of different tools. What happens, though, is that you get a development process with data that's fragmented across those tools. Teams often try to use spreadsheets and as sort of that intermediary for collaboration and even traceability. This leads to fragmented requirements traceability, and it requires a lot of manual effort to cobble that together. People are using emails and meetings to try to prevent delays and defects, and it's introducing things like rework and cost overruns. A lot of companies just accept that, hey, that's the way it is. It's an unchangeable reality, given the lack that there's a single platform to enable this entire process. Our answer is live traceability. This live traceability is the ability for any engineer at any time to see the most up-to-date and complete upstream and downstream information for any requirement, no matter the stage of systems development or how many siloed tools and teams it spans. This sort of thing enables the engineering process to be managed through data, and lets you improve the performance over time. So really, what Nizam and I are going to show, and you're going to see a Jama overview too, but what we're going to show is this notion of live traceability between EA and Jama in action. And so when we say live traceability like for MBSE, really, or any tool using a system model, is facilitating a technical approach for the creation, consumption, and measurement of that systems engineering data. So when I say live traceability for MBSE, it's about all of those things, and then it facilitates not only the data traceability but the communication across project teams, systems engineering teams, architecture teams, and software teams. So what we're going to see when we're actually putting live traceability in action is we're going to essentially join the EA model with the Jama model. We're going to then, as data is synchronizing and as data is changing, on the Jama side, we're continually calculating that traceability and coverage scores. Even you're going to see some measurement of that, and this sort of inspection and analysis can be used to identify high risk areas, right? And then 3, the system model can detect any changes. So if I change requirements or add new requirements, the system model is detecting those changes, and the modeling engineer can take the right corrective action. So let's see what this looks like in Jama itself. Jama is a tool used in a web browser, which makes it a dream for the IT folks, right? On the screen here, I have an example CubeSat model. So in Jama, we call a model a project. In this organizational area, this particular, we're managing regulatory requirements and stakeholder expectations, different types of validations. We have the concept of operations in there. We've broken down this CubeSat into a hierarchy of the subcomponents. I can see their system requirements. I have a communication subsystem, and I can see the low-level subsystem requirements and the verifications for those. So I have that data that provides me sort of end-to-end view. Notice also that it's not just requirements, but it's architecture, it's risk management. So any kind of threats and risks that I have going on in there. And there's full traceability throughout all of these constructs. Jama lets you define what your sort of data and traceability model looks like. We even surface up a picture of it so that anybody that's using this model kind of knows how to traverse or analyze or create the correct traces. And this traceability model constrains users to create those correct traces. There's a numerous ways of looking at traceability. So if I want to start at the highest level of abstraction, these stakeholder expectations, you might call them stakeholder needs, you might call them customer requirements, you can call it whatever you want in Jama. I can traverse just in the tree if I want. Hey, this particular climate monitoring expectation has got some system requirements written for it. It's got a validation test written for it. As I go down, I can see various other, the verification that's written for those system requirements. I can also use really simple traceability views too. So maybe if I just want to see the traceability for these mission objectives in a more linear fashion, I can use our live trace view and have a side-by-side or real time. So this is not traceability after the fact. This is exactly what it is at this point in time. I might have Nizam might be writing new test cases right now. He might even be running some of these test cases. I can follow that traceability completely downstream too. So if I wanted to go and see what these system requirements are traced to, or the concept of operations is traced to, I have the ability to look at those traces from end to end. If I wanted to start maybe at the bottom too, so if I'm all the way down here at this communications subsystem level requirements, this is all fake data, so I don't have a lot in there. If I turn its trace view on, I should be able to look in the opposite direction. I do see its verification tests, some traceability to a user story, so there's some software in there as well. You can kind of see there's different icons and different IDs to represent different types of data. But I can go and look upstream too. What are those sub-requirements traced to? What architecture are they allocated to? Right? What are the so there's a lot of different ways to get at the information. I did make a really kind of a big point about measurement, measuring the process. There's a couple of different ways that you can measure this and how live traceability will come into play. Kind of starts on a dashboard. You might see dashboards like this in Collaborate as well. This is sort of a requirements directed dashboard, so I can see, things like, which of these stakeholder expectations are failing. So I've got some validation tests running. Here's one that's failing. Which system requirements have not yet been allocated to architecture? Right? What items are assigned to me? What recent activity? Which stakeholder expectations are missing, haven't been traced to a system requirement at all. So we have real-time views, real-time dashboards that are clickable, that take you right to the data. We also have the capability to measure the complete traceability end to end and show percentages of where something might be missing. In our live Trace Explorer, this is a real-time view of exactly what that traceability looks like. And we also surface up a score. So overall, right now, this project, from a traceability standpoint, is about 60%. If we are midway through development, that might be okay. If we're getting near to a release, this might be kind of disastrous because something is either way out of scope, or not enough testing has been done, or maybe you didn't even write the test cases. And so if I take that bird's eye view, it looks like I have traceability for validation. My verification tests, there's still a lot of requirements that haven't had a test case written for it, right? if I even go down into the subsystem level, it looks like my design engineers are doing a little bit better job with traceability. My software team has traceability to the proper requirements. But the systems engineers are definitely not doing their job. I can see things like suspect. So if something were to change, hey, I've got 5 that are suspect. And these are all live too. So if I wanted to go and find out, hey, let's look at these requirements and see that traceability, I can use that live trace explorer to take me exactly to where I need to be. So I've got some of these stakeholder requirements, and I see some that are traced so far, but some that are not. So here's some example of some stakeholder requirements. There's no traceability. I'm just going to add some and show you how the trace score is going to change. So I'll pick up some of these that don't have traces, and I'll just make this probably would never take place in reality, but I'm going to relate it to something that's already in there, or I could have authored a new requirement as well. I'm just going to relate it to something that's already in the system just to make it a little bit easy. So for these stakeholder requirements, I'm just going to choose one that's out there already. That's as easy as it is. I mean, there's a dozen different ways to actually create these traces. We've got some in place. Let's go and see now what's happened to our live trace explorer. We should see a little bit better. Yeah, so we are seeing a little bit better of our system requirements. We've gone up a little bit. Our traceability score has increased some as well. So this is some of the new technology for really understanding traceability, really understanding what's going on in your development teams. This really gives chief engineers and product managers that sense of comfort of knowing exactly where are the gaps in our process, where are the gaps in the data, and how do I resolve that in a more timely method than waiting towards the end of everything, right? So I think what Nizam is going to show is like, hey, we've got requirements that have been defined in Java. What happens when they get pulled into Enterprise Architect, right? He might be showing, some of these architecture that's built in Enterprise Architect. What happens when those come back into Java? What are some of the cool things from a traceability standpoint that's going on? There's a lot to see in Java. I'd love to answer any questions that you might have, or if you want a deep dive on a demo, happy to show that as well. So, Nizam, I am going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Cary. Let me just go back to my screen. Okay, thanks, Cary, for the wonderful intro to Jama. And you did mention the system engineers have relatively not done a great job like others, and that's exactly where integration like this may be helpful, because for a system engineer to be able to establish that traceability between the requirements and the actual design, we need a modeling tool in place as well. So Enterprise Architect, as you all know, is a specialized modeling tool that kind of caters to a variety of architectural needs, but specifically systems engineering using SysML and UML, where we could do the high-level design and low-level designs and model them to the most granular details. And for the systems engineering team, like Cary mentioned, traceability is paramount. And to be able to verify that all the requirements that have been defined in a hierarchical manner, starting from a very high level need all the way down to a component or a interface level requirement, we should be able to connect all these requirements to design elements, and those design elements could be a block diagram or an internal block diagram or a state machine or a sequence diagram, which we can design in Enterprise Architect. And to be able to do this, we wanted to design an integration that goes more into the details than just offering a data exchange. Yes, we could integrate these two tools by just exporting a set of requirements from Jama in an Excel spreadsheet and import them into Enterprise Architect. That will still work. But what we have designed in this integration is something that understands the Jama project. Like Cary mentioned, a Jama project can have a relationship rule, which we call the meta model, the type of artifacts that one can use in a project. We again, refer to them as stereotypes in Enterprise Architect. So this integration will be able to understand what's in the Jama project and create an equivalent in Enterprise Architect, so that you can not only import them across, but also create connectors in the same way that the Jama relationship rules or the meta model defines. So if you are trying to connect a block to a requirement, you can do it in exactly the same connector type that Jama expects in order to maintain this live traceability view. So our idea is to get those requirements into your modeling environment, let you connect them to the designs that you have in Enterprise Architect, and then synchronize these changes back to Jama, all pretty much automated way without having any manual extracts and imports, and allow these traceability information to be updated in the live traceability view of Jama as well. So that's the vision when we started developing this. And to that effect, the key features of Jama integration has been our ability to create, visualize, and update this traceability. And in terms of data exchange, all the pre-configuration. So we wanted the teams to be just doing the data exchange in a single click, and all the configuration that is required to enable this could be done upfront so that it's ready to go. What I mean by configuration is these are two different tools which kind of takes different approaches to systems engineering, but we need to have some kind of a mapping between a system level requirement or a subsystem level requirement to whatever is going to be visualized in the modeling tool, and how you can probably extend it and update it. So all those configurations has been taken into consideration and made quite easy to access. And then we also have equivalent meta model definition in Enterprise Architect, so that you could create the connectors, you could create even a new requirement on the fly if you think there is something missing, so that that could be cascaded back to Jama and be part of the bigger requirements list. So that's kind of why we have this automatic EA configuration created for the Jama project, because it's specific to a project. It's not a one size fits all these should be happening by understanding the project that you are trying to include or import, and then act based on that. And also Jama's approach to requirements is quite hierarchical, so it kind of breaks down the high level needs or expectations all the way down to the most granular requirement, and we need to be able to bring that hierarchy across as well. So these are all the key features of the new Jama integration that we are introducing along with Enterprise Architect 17. And just a quick glimpse of what we are talking about. So, the moment you connect to a Jama project, kind of reads all the items that are in its meta model and all the attributes. So it's not just a high level creation of an equivalent stereotype. We go all the way to the attributes that the JAMA meta model supports, and then let our users choose which of these are expected to be represented in Enterprise Architect. So based on this selection, the JAMA integration will automatically generate an equivalent toolbox in Enterprise Architect. So for people who are familiar with Enterprise Architect, you may know we work like with diagrams as our focus, and the toolboxes are usually adhering to the standards. So we have a SysML toolbox or a UML toolbox, and this is something like that, but corresponds to the JAMA project that you're working on. So when you are trying to create something new in the modeling side, as you are importing the requirements, this toolbox could make it quite easier for you. And then the integration will also allow you to take a live peek into the JAMA project. So on your left is the JAMA project organization structure that even Cary was talking about. And you will see an equivalent structure in Enterprise Architect as it reads it. And then you could choose a folder or a specific set of that folder and import them into Enterprise Architect, and that goes in a recursive manner and read all the requirements and sub requirements and imports them along with the hierarchy. So what you're looking at here is, if I say import them from system level, it goes all the way to the subfolders and to the most granular requirements and bring them across. And then as like the key focus is about traceability, you could see that the traceability information is visualized in JAMA and in Enterprise Architect, like in its own ways. Like JAMA goes with, like, the textual representation and links to requirements, and Enterprise Architect takes a more graphical modeling route to it, but the information is kind of persistent in both tools. And you could actually use the same dependencies and requirements that we do in the live trace explorer that Cary mentioned about as well. And in terms of, the overarching workflow of this, of how a JAMA integration is expected to work when it comes to Enterprise Architect, what we wanted is something that reads a JAMA project, analyzes it, understands its meta model, its attributes, the project organization, pretty much everything that JAMA has. And based on that, it lets users configure what they would like to see in Enterprise Architect. So it's all graphical. We want them all to be easier for the users to achieve. So the configuration will just show everything that it was able to read from JAMA and let them choose what they want to incorporate, and that will set up all the configuration for them. And then the import actually could happen in a single click. So all you need to do is to look at the JAMA folder or the part of the JAMA project that you want to import, and with a single click it kind of goes and imports the entire hierarchy across along with relationships into your Enterprise Architect model. And then using those requirements, we expect the system engineers to be able to connect those requirements to the structural elements in the Enterprise Architect model. And those could be, as I said, blocks or internal blocks or UML classes or components or sequence diagrams or state machine diagrams. All these are quite essential for the detailed design of system engineering projects, and that could be something that they could connect their JAMA requirements to. And what we also wanted is a single click synchronization option. So you complete all your changes. All you want to do now is to cascade these changes back to JAMA, and it just doesn't send the updated requirements back, but it can also create your blocks and the connectivity between your blocks and your requirements back to JAMA along with diagrams. So even an Enterprise Architect diagram is created in JAMA, like a representation of that where users could click on it, view the actual diagram, and then possibly navigate back to Collaborate to view that in more detail if they need. So just a quick a demo of how the whole thing has been implemented. So starting from Jama, where Cary set a context. So there's a like the landing page of Jama with the project. So we're just using an example project, which also has the live traceability view, which is in my opinion, quite a powerful tool for systems engineering community, because now this is like a overarching view of how things are progressing and where there are gaps. This trace score is quite bad because the project has just started, let's assume. But what you see is there's nothing when it comes to system level, there's no system requirements trace that's been established. Now I'm switching to Enterprise Architect, and I'm going to start with the first step where we analyze and configure. So to be able to do that, all you need to do is to connect to a Jama instance. And the moment we connect to a Jama instance, that will start listing all the projects that it can access. And it can even go to a specific part of the Jama project where you want to start with. And then once this configuration is done, that pretty much goes and lets you build a profile. When I say a profile, this for a modeler, EA user, you may already relate to it. This is the tool set that we use to model in EA, and now it automatically creates a Jama MDG or a Jama toolbox, and this is configurable. As you could see, I'm able to remove an element or remove attributes which I don't want to bring them across, and then it's all like a couple of clicks away before importing a Jama profile within Enterprise Architect. So now with these 2-3 steps, we are now able to create an equivalent profile that will let our system engineering users who are modeling their components and blocks in Enterprise Architect to also do the Jama type modeling, or the types that are required for Jama to be able to create this traceability view. And with that said, what I'm going to do is to jump to the actual integration page where we have the Jama project that we connected to in the previous step already loaded. And then I could just navigate to the part of the model that I want to import and just go import and all the mapping. So these are the technical aspects which we want to make really seamless to our users. I mean, all these would have ideally been defined by the system engineer before doing any import. But what we have done is we have done a careful analysis of the Jama project and done this mapping automatically for them so that they could just go ahead and import. Of course, they will have the ability to change them if needed, but we want to minimize that upfront effort, and that's why a lot of thought has been implemented in building these profiles. And once the configuration is there, and then I go ahead and import the selected part of the model, this is automatically connecting to your Jama instance, and like Trace said, it's all live. So whatever is there now is what is brought across. So there's no publish to an Excel or publish to some place. So I'm connecting to a Jama instance, reading a Jama project, and getting all the requirements and sub requirements from the Jama project across to the modeling tool. This is mastered in Jama, just stored in Enterprise Architect. So that's where the key is. So a single source of truth in the past could have been creating everything in one tool, but that's far from reality now. What we need is multiple tools to seamlessly operate together to build that single source of view, and that's exactly what these integrations are allowing us to do. And what I'm doing now is to use these requirements in my systems engineering view and just connecting some of these blocks to these requirements. And as you can see, the connector that I'm using here is coming from the Jama profile. What this means is it is conformant to SysML, but it's also understood by Jama. So it's like, we have done it in a way that we extend SysML, but map it to the Jama specific requirement or the connector. And once I'm done with this, what I could do is to circle back these changes to the Jama project. And what that means is it takes the Jama requirements changes. So if I have modified any changes to the imported requirements, that will be taken back to Jama as well. But on top of it, what it also will do is to create all these blocks that I have created or used in EA for the traceability, because the traceability can be viewed only if there is the corresponding block as well. So the integration will take care of creating those blocks as well in your Jama project. It's all kind of pre-configured. Like, the thing that we want to minimize is the fiddling around that users have to do for each of these steps. So most of the manual efforts has been taken into consideration in the integration, so that it kind of automatically pushes this information back. The only thing that it pops up with is it's now seeing few new things, like the physical architecture package and the physical architecture package that we were looking at was something that is new in Jama. So it is not seeing that in the current Jama project. So it's asking the user on how to go with it and what do you want to do with it. So once we say I want to map these as a component or a set, so it kind of shows you what you can actually map to in Jama. And once you do that mapping, it kind of takes all these changes and update it back in Jama. So pretty much import, modify, extend traceability, and update it back to Jama is all sort of seamless. And this is a recurring thing. So you could just go and say synchronize, and it will take all the Jama's changes and update the model information in Enterprise Architect as well. And after this change, what you can see is the physical architecture has been created in Jama. The diagram has also been created as a new type. So there is a diagram type that we are creating in Jama. And each of the elements in the diagram are understood. So there's a link to each of the elements in the diagram. That's again within Jama. So this is to make it easier for the Jama users to navigate through the diagrams and models as well. So each of these blocks have been imported, and the diagram containing the block has also been created. And then users could just click on those links and navigate to the specific block that was originally modeled in Enterprise Architect and imported into Jama. And that kind of view along with the traceability, so it's also now showing the requirements that are connected to these blocks. So pretty much it gets gelled within Jama in the way that Jama expects, quite seamlessly. And then that kind of circles back to the trace view, that is the absolute, that's the final expectation. So all these are done to make sure the traceability is quite seamless, and it's updated as well. Hasn't done a big deal of change because we just changed it a little bit, but you could see the trace score already ticking up, and some of the system level requirements trace is already in place. And I'm just navigating to the table view of this trace, and it shows that these are the blocks and these are the corresponding requirements that were connected to them. So just a recap of what we saw. So the focus of this whole integration is to have these requirements to design traceability, and to allow that to happen quite seamlessly, we need to have a real-time data exchange with very minimal configuration. All the configuration that's required for a Jama project to be maintained in the modeling environment being generated automatically. And you can also import and maintain the hierarchical model information. So that's a quick recap of what we did in this Jama integration. And that's pretty much what I wanted to show.
Okay, thanks, Nizam. Thanks, Cary. We do have some questions coming up from the attendees. The first question is, can you connect to multiple Jama projects from a single EA model?
Yes, so the integration will allow us to create links to multiple Jama projects. But yes, there'll be different configurations for each project because like there will be different MDGs and different profiles. But the answer is yes.
Okay. The next question is about what data can be brought over from Jama, and specifically, if description is a rich text field in Jama, will images and other rich text content get copied into EA?
So that's a great question. At the moment, the rich text field is imported into Enterprise Architect. So rich text description in Jama along with all the formatting. We can try. I mean, I'm not sure about images, but I can request that to be tested specifically and provide a response. But yeah, thanks for that note. Like we do import the rich text, but I have to check on the images. Sorry.
Okay, great. The next one, does the Jama integration support custom objects that customers configured in Jama?
Yes. Yes, so that's definitely a yes. So it all kind of reflects in the meta model of Jama, and we read them all. And even if there's a custom object, we will create an equivalent in Enterprise Architect and import them across.
Okay, and then how will conflicts be handled by this connector?
Okay, so in terms of like the source of truth, the Jama is considered as the master, and Enterprise Architect is more a store of this information. Ideally, the permissions to edit the requirements should be confined within Jama. But if there are changes that's happening in Enterprise Architect on those requirements, and if the importing user has the permissions, the updated model takes precedence. Like there's no explicit step to say there is a change that we see while importing. So if there is change that has happened in the modeling tool side, and then we are importing it back to Jama, and if the user has the permission to update the Jama requirement, the changes in the modeling side takes precedence. But it's in a general practice, users would have the data stored in EA just for the traceability and maybe creating something new that's not already documented in Jama. But the master is Jama when it comes to requirements.
Okay, great. And then one final question is, in the example, you were talking about kind of an MBSE type example with systems engineering. If folks are using Jama for more software architecture or other types of projects, could this connector be used for other types of architecture requirements management as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Cary and I, we have already spoken about this as well. So this example has been specifically for the systems engineering world, but Jama is quite widely used in the architecture space as well. And the same concept applies. So we'll be able to import the requirements across to an architecture repository, connect them to an architecture design artifact, and synchronize it back as well.
Okay. Fantastic. So as we go ahead and wrap up this session, I'd like to start by thanking everyone who's joined live, and also thanking Nizam and Cary for presenting today. The session recordings will be posted on the EA Global Summit website and the Collaborate YouTube channel after the event. If you'd like to arrange a demo or a call to take a look at this integration in your environments and move forward on it, please reach out to your Sparx account team or email sales@sparxsystems.us, and we'll get you connected with the right folks. The next section will begin in about 15 minutes, and it will actually be Nizam and I sharing the latest innovations from Sparx as it relates to advanced analytics and artificial intelligence. So see the registration link within your email for the link to join that session. So again, thanks everyone for joining, and we look forward to seeing you on the next session of the EA Global Summit.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you very much, Cary, for joining and co-presenting this.
Thanks for having me.